you think we should go to the 28th to 35?
Fucking do this to this guy right now, dude. You know what I mean? But you know you have to. You also like want to go to lunch. Just something that just, it might like a coaster or something. This is why I gotta let you go, because you fucking suck. Alright, Miguel, let me know when you're ready.
Cameras roll.
And action.
Alright folks, I just thought we would share some BTS because thanks to our awesome cinematographer and colorist, Miguel Ordez, he also showed up with his little DJI. So we do have a little bit of BTS here. The stuff inside the office is a little rough. I'm going to do my best to clean it up in post. There was just a really loud AC unit in this little tiny office that we were in. But at the same time, like, I think it's cool for you guys to see certain moments of me directing Shalaby.
Mask to be like, dude, I don't want to fucking do this to this guy right now, dude. You know what I mean? But you know you have to. You also like want to go to lunch, right? So just try it again.
Sorry, Tim. We're gonna have to let you go. As you can.
Yeah, but don't go back to flipping the photos. You're just like budget cuts, and you're just looking at the thing, and you're frozen looking at the pictures because you just want me to get up and leave. You're like, in your head, you're like, please get up and leave, dude. I just fired you. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
One more.
Sorry, Tim. We're gonna have to let you go. As you can.
Fucking got it, dude. We're ready to roll.
Yeah, so you'll notice there, like, I was telling him, like, when I'm saying, like, you also want to go to lunch, I'm not talking about him as a human being, as Omar, I'm talking about his character, right? So, like, you notice I'm, like, I am giving him little nuggets there of, like, you know, like, the reason why I was getting him direct action to not look back at me so soon is because his character in my brain, he would be embarrassed. You know, your character would be embarrassed because he doesn't want to actually fire his friend, right? But he has bosses that he has to answer to. And I know this is like, dude, this is way too intense for this little ad, but this is just how I operate, guys. Like, this is how I approach everything because, one, I mean, yeah, who cares? It's just a little spec ad, but also, like, I take all of this as an opportunity to work and to practice and train, right? So, like, and I think that comes from my acting background because as an actor, you look at every audition as an opportunity to act. Right? That's just the way I was taught. Like, show them the character, how you interpreted the character, you know, show them what you can do.
I'm gonna fucking fire this guy right now. You know? But for the first one, we'll have you be just like ready to fire me. But you're not technically excited about it, but you're just like, this is why I gotta let you go, because you fucking suck, dude.
You want me to say it? You think just...
No. For this, no dial. It's all in the face. And it's good because you're kind of looking towards the camera. Cool.
You can see, like, it's very minimal. Like, I actually, you know, like, this is the business office suite of Shalaby's apartment building. He did not ask permission. They told him we could film in there, but only if it was, like, a self-tape. They know he's an actor. They're like, if you're doing a self-tape with your cell phone. And then I literally showed up with like a wagon of gear and he was like, oh shit, but we still tried to do it. This wasn't even the original office that we were going to film in. I had chose another much bigger, cooler looking one, but I think this one ended up being better because of this is the one that actually had a window in it. So that was kind of rad. We were able to get some depth shooting out of the window. I had this other like big grandiose idea of this other kind of cooler office looking. It looked more like an actual business office, like high tower office that was in my head when I wrote the script because it had like these, it was like an L office with these huge windows. And I was like, hell yeah. And I had this idea of a really low angle kind of establishing shot of the camera outside of the office looking through the glass. But you know, Miguel later on was like, it probably worked out for the better because we tried to do that something similar to this little office. And when he was on the other side of the glass, both inside and out, well, obviously the outside was worse, but the inside, even with a polarizer, a circular polarizer, he cannot see through the glass, even when he was on the inside of the building. It probably worked out better that we got stuck into this little tiny office because of the big window that we had, because it looked kind of rad in the final footage. You'll notice though, we just have this one Titan tube just here, like pointing directly at us. We had experimented with like bouncing it into the wall. I also brought the light sock for the Titan, but we never even threw it on because we were battling this huge window. And keep in mind, you know, we're using the FX6's internal ND and stuff. So, but yeah, this was before like I really padded out the table too. Like you'll notice another reason is because the other office had like stuff, you know, and the idea was how I originally wrote it is he, you know, if the camera was outside of the bigger office looking through the glass, and he was supposed to be kind of like doing big gestures and kind of like basically reprimanding me, right? But we couldn't really hear what he was saying. But now that we're in the office, I had to kind of like sidestep away from that idea of being reprimanded by my boss. And so then we went this idea that like, I'm like, fuck. And I had my big like Cine bag DP camera bag with me that just happened to have like a brown envelope with some of the prints that I've done from street photography. So I was like, oh, okay, we can use this because it was like a brown manila envelope. And I just said, well, fuck it. I guess we'll just pretend that like I'm a photographer for this company, right? Because Miguel also brought his little Sony camera here. So we put Miguel's camera there on the table, and I got my little like prints here. These are actual prints that I sold and stuff. These are just like, you know, like the first test prints. I don't know why those were in my my DP bag, but luckily they were. And then so once I saw this shot, I'm like, damn, it's still like really empty here on the table. So then I brought out more crap out of my bag, and they actually did end up looking like little folders, but they weren't. It was actually the cardboard pieces that all the cord bag patches attached to, and we just flipped them upside down because the back of them was like brown cardboard, and it just kind of looked like folders. Then we threw like a pen on top of those, and you know, because we're just looking for ways to like not just for like props and shit on the table, but also just wanted like business for like foreground, you know, to build a little bit of layers in this very tight, rather not so cool shot, you know. And then this is here just kind of helping as like a low kind of room tone / fill light of just battling with this window back here. But yeah, I also brought a huge breakaway 4x4 floppy from Modern Studio, and we weren't even going to pretend to try to put that up because they would have been like, what the hell, dude?
Or whatever. Just something that just, it might like a coaster or something. I can just like, if I have like some more notebooks or something. I do have like a pile of like cardboard stuff.
Yeah, so you can see I have on the inside for the inside interiors for that wide shot. Well, we used my Leica M lenses for all the interiors. And then for the exteriors, we used my zooms. But I had specifically planned to use my zooms outside because the references that I shared with Miguel for the day exteriors was The Graduate, specifically the very end of The Graduate, where they just do those long zoom panning follow shots of when Dustin Hoffman is like running around. And so that's what I sent him. Obviously, I'm not running in the commercial. That wouldn't quite make sense. But that was kind of the idea, like our own version of those long panning zoom shots. But for the interiors, I originally did bring my Athena primes, but then we ended up using my two Leica M lenses that I brought as well. And I really threw those in last minute. And I'm glad I did because the 50mm is a 1.2 and this 28mm is a 1.9. And it just really worked out nice. And just to call out the pants, because a couple people mentioned the California slides with the high waters. I bought this Get Up at a Goodwill. And, you know, there's no more like fitting rooms as of 2020. So like, I was like, I think these fit, you know, I was just going by the waist. And then I got home and washed them and put them on. I realized they were high waters. And I was like, oh, screw it. Marianne said, well, just wear your beach slides. And so that's what we did. I tried my best to like cut around the feet shot. But anyways, back there, you'll see my wagon. Right over here's my wagon right there. You can literally see the right angle of the frames for the floppy. There's the floppy on the top of the table there. I used it to wrap the Titan tube and keep the Titan safe. And there's that Cinebags DP bag I was telling you about that all the shit was in. Luckily, I had that just to have extra props and things. It was really a battle trying to figure out how to get that wide somewhat interesting. I mean, you can see the space isn't exactly incredible.
Good.
Reroll.
Yeah, so this one would just be all natural, just kind of just see what happens organically while you're looking at me and looking at the photos. All right, Miguel, let me know when you're ready.
Cameras roll.
And action. All right, cut. Yeah, I think we got it now. All right, let's get your mic on. Mark, we'll put your mic on, and I think we can get your coverage. When we do his coverage, Miguel, we can totally...
I like to do really long takes, even when it's just something as benign as that, because I'm just kind of looking for little moments of, you know, you just never know. You know, you want to have enough. Plus, you want like tails in the front and back. like enough space in the front and back. But if we look at the settings here, you'll notice that we were pushing the highlights a little bit. Normally you don't want to do that. Like when it says highlight right there, it's usually you want to try to preserve your highlights a little better, but we weren't exactly losing it. It was okay. He had a 1/8 ND in camera there, and you'll notice the white balance was set to 4506. I did take my, when I do day interiors, obviously I always use my Sekonic color meter. So I did take a reading, and I think I'm the one that told him to set it to 4500. But you'll notice, yeah, we were living at 800. This is S-Log3, S-Gamma3.cine, obviously. But you'll notice, like, for the space, this frame's not bad, right? And it took us a lot of experimenting between Miguel and I both to kind of like get to the frame that we both liked and agreed on. But you'll notice those cardboard things, that's the cord bag cardboard things that the cord bag patches are on. But you'll notice in camera, it just looks like folders, you know, it looks pretty cool. Just a little bit of foreground, a little bit of something. We can see that it looks like he went with like a 2 split, almost a 2.8. I believe that's probably like a 2 split he went there on the lens. Yeah, that's the Sennheiser MKH 416 with a little baby XLR there. And yeah, so that's kind of how we did the wide. And when I told Miguel, like when he grades the interiors, I kind of convinced him to do DEHANCER. He's been a partner with DEHANCER for a long time, and he kind of got away from using it. But because I'm kind of new to it, and of course they're obviously a newer partner of the channel, I was like, no, let's use DEHANCER. And I encouraged him to use Vision 3 500T for the interiors, and then Ektachrome for the exteriors, which is kind of what I've been doing all my stuff on. But Miguel is like so advanced with DEHANCER, it ended up looking way better than anything I would have ever done. It was quite awesome.
Dude, these glasses are gonna kill me. I know about whether they already saw in the wide, right? Here, we gotta drop this down, bro. Here, do this. Pull that down through the bottom of your shirt. This is what we'll do. I'll hang them up.
All right, so now we're going in for the coverage, it looks like. And for his lav mic, I just used a Tascam DR10L Pro. And I mean, you can hear how loud that interior AC was of that office. And that Tascam does pretty good job for like its own like internal like low hertz noise cancellation stuff. It also has 32-bit float, but I did have to do quite a bit in post. And even then, like I'm not like a really good sound engineer mixer guy in post. So, but I did my best, you know, with what DaVinci offers for like, you know, lowbrow guys like myself. But that's what I'm putting on him, the Tascam DR10L Pro, this little lav. Yeah, so he had his glasses on his shirt, so I was trying to think of ways to. I was just worried about them rubbing against the lav. And then you'll see this is my little like kit of mics and stuff. What I use is these little softies, and they have little holes. They're like little cushions, and then I strip the little lapel mic down to nothing, and I shove it inside of it looks like a little pillow, and I shove it inside the pillow, and then I like use this like sticky tape, like wardrobe tape, and I stick it on the inside of the shirts. And then I also have ones that like stick directly to skin. You can see them down there. They're like little Ryco things, and they work really well to like hide. Well, there you can see the Leica. It's actually a Light Lens Lab 51.2. It's just a copy of the Leica, but that's what we're using there. We put that on for our coverage. And yeah, and I remember in the previs that I specifically told Miguel that I want Omar's kind of to be low angle, kind of like, you know, make him like powerful boss mode.
And let me pull it up real quick. So it was, I'm just gonna see what, yeah, oh yeah. This is just what I wrote. Purses lips, raises eyebrows, looks down. Yeah.
Yeah, so my thing is like I've been friends with Omar for a really long time. I met him way back in like 2010, 2011 when I lived in Detroit. He's actually from Detroit, Michigan, and I went to grad school in Detroit. I have a master's in theater from Wayne State University, and I met him on a movie because I started working in film and television like right after I got out of grad school, because it was during the time when Detroit had its big boom. So like its big tax incentive, like I think its tax incentive was like 44% or something. And so that's when they were filming all this shit over there, like The Irishman and Harold and Kumar's and Transformers and like tons of stuff. There was an Aaron Paul movie that went down over there, and that's where I was like Aaron Paul's like photo double and shit like that. So it was like a lot of stuff going on at the time. And then him and I were slated to be in this film, like a low budget indie feature film. And then obviously, as it is with most things in Hollywood, it fell through. And this is a thing, like this is why people always ask, like, Justin, why are you so like jaded and like all this stuff? And it's just because, man, like after working in the film industry, you know, so that was 2010 when I first transitioned from theater to film and TV. And so like 2010 to 2025, that's why like 15 years. So it's like 15 years of like, there's been a ton of jobs and things that I worked on pilots, like literal pilots that are like, you can see it on my IMDb where like I was one of the recurring characters of a little Hulu series. We shot like 6 or 8 episodes of it, and we're super stoked. There's a lot of people in it, like, and you get super stoked about this shit, and then like it never comes to fruition, right? Even after you film something, right? And the only reason I bring that up is because this film that him and I, this was, we filmed a couple scenes of it, and it was one of those things too where it falls through. So you think about 15 years of like tons of stuff where you get your hopes up, and not just that, but also like in the commercial acting world, right? Like they have this thing that called like they pin you, right? So your agent will be like, they pinned you, which just means like basically like if some kind of natural disaster happens and the guy that they actually chose falls through, then they'll use you. But keep in mind, like they usually pin like more than one person, right? So like you're not the only one getting pinned. And it's just like you live like this for like 15 years, it just causes you to have a certain kind of mentality, a certain kind of backbone. So that's why I say like, that's why I am the way I am. It's like I'm a product of my environment. So I never get excited about potential opportunities. I'd never get excited about even when you're like, oh, this may happen. Like after you go through it so many times, you're like, there's nothing to get excited about. The only time I get excited about it is when it's actually done and released, right? Because you still can't get excited about it even if you already shot it, because that's what happened to me on the Hulu pilot. It's like you're stoked, you're there filming it. We never even got the footage for it. Like they never even gave us the raw footage for it. This is years ago, right? So it's like you cannot get excited about anything in this town until it's actually released and out. And then you're like, okay, now we can get pumped about it, right? Because otherwise you look like an idiot if you tell people about it and then it never ever comes to fruition. You're like, no, I swear we filmed this thing. It's like, well, where is it, dude? Like, you know what I mean? So that's why I am the way I am. And I only bring that up because him and I met that way on a film that just completely fell through. I mean, that's just the nature of the business, but him and I go way back. And one of my biggest things like that I always try to focus on in my own acting, but also in my directing, because this is not also, guys, this is not my first time like writing, directing, and acting something and producing something. Like we have a couple films on Amazon Prime, little short films, just kind of whatever, but You Have Arrived and Wolf Game, and they've been on Amazon Prime since like 2017. So like something that I've always tried to focus on in my own acting is subtlety, right? And that's something I always push for when I'm directing actors too, like subtlety. I like to remind Omar about what I wrote in the script, like just actions, but like he doesn't need to be married to that, right? And a lot of it is because like if there's actions that I write in the script, that's just the way that I would think that I would do it, or the way that I envision the character doing it, right? Like the way, and obviously this was wrote for him and I, so in my head, I envisioned Omar like pursing his lips and kind of looking down, right? But the reality is like, I don't want any actor to be married to the action, because like that's not like a true representation, right? It's just not. It's like, as an actor, as an artist, they're all going to interpret the character however they want. And that's what I really want. Like, I don't want them to be married to the action. And there are a lot of big time actors that have said publicly in interviews that a lot of times they don't even read the action. Like they won't read the action at all. They only read the dialogue. A lot of big actors have admitted that. And I think a lot of it is because they don't want to get married to that. Like they don't want that to influence the way that they're creating their own character, rather, right? Like they don't want anything to influence the character that they're creating. So I try to encourage that as well, but at the same time, I also want to encourage subtlety, right? Because especially because of coming from the theater world, I did regional theater from 2002 to 2010. Like in the theater world, it's exact opposite. Like in the theater world, everything has to be big because you have to perform for all the little old people that are way in the back row, all the way up to the front row. You're talking about houses that seat like 1,000 people, right? So everything is big and kind of large, but the same time, the grad school that I went to incorporated certain techniques, and I went to the Stanislavski Moscow Art Theater School, which is home of the method acting. They incorporate these techniques that are the opposite of what you're doing on a stage, right? Which is better and gets you more prepared for film and television, because the reality is like it's almost opposite. There are no big gestures. You want everything to almost become internalized and a lot of subtlety to it. And some of the greatest actors, in my opinion, of our time are some of the best reactors, right? To me, it's like, it's not about acting, it's about who's reacting the best. And, just offhand, you think of one of the great reactors is like De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, Tom Hardy, right? These guys are actually listening to what people are telling them. And a lot of times that's why, or better yet, Cillian Murphy, right? They're showing you, they don't always even show you what they're saying. They're just showing you how these guys are reacting because they're actually living in the moment, right? Reacting is actually acting, right? And it's really hard to get a lot of actors to fall into that because they think like, oh, I'm just saying my lines. I just need to memorize my lines. It's like, no, dude, you need to know way more than that. These lines need to be in your bones. And that's that's why like a lot of great actors like Anthony Hopkins, he'll read the script like 500 times. And the only reason he's reading the script that many times is so it's in his bones. It literally, the words are in his bones now, right? So he doesn't have to worry about the words. The words are going to do whatever they're going to do, right? The words will be there, right? You like, if you're thinking about the words as an actor, you're not an actor, in my opinion, right? You're not acting, right? It has to be in your bones. You have to feel it. You just have to live it, right? And that's the embodiment of the character. And it all really starts with subtlety, right? In my opinion, right? The more subtle that it is, the more internalized it is, and then the more believable it is.
The lip thing.
So just let's
Yeah, that was it. Where you're just like, fuck. You know, like that was the idea. Like in his, like when I first wrote it, like I felt like he was a guy like.
So you can see there, I'm just kind of like giving notes to Omar and just trying to, because here's the thing too. One of my biggest things coming from acting world and directing world, it's like you never give a line reading. You just don't. And if for those of you new to this, if you don't know what a line reading is, it's when you say the line the way that you think it should be said, right? You never do that. That's the biggest no-no. Like that's the biggest sign of a director that has no experience, in my opinion, as someone that's been acting since 2002. The minute a director gives a line reading, no more respect for him from me, right? That's how I've always been, because that's not how you direct real actors. That's not how you direct bad actors. It's just not how you direct. You don't do line readings. And this is something that I learned of like my biggest, like hardest thing going from theater to film and television is like, man, even when you're like walking off set, you'll hear the crew. And look, it's not done on purpose, right? I realize that. But like if you deliver a line like really good, because I did a lot of comedy, and like you deliver a line really well, and as I'm walking off set, you hear the crew say the line the way that I said it. I don't even like to hear that shit, because that influences you, right? Because you're like, oh, they like the way I said it. I said it like that. I need to keep saying it like that, right? It all fucks with your head as an actor, as a performer, right? I just imagine if I was like a huge celebrity or something, I'd be the asshole that's like, can we have the crew not say my lines? You know what I mean? Because it is a thing that kind of fucks with your head as a performer, right? So it's just a big thing. You don't do line readings. So then you say, well, Justin, how do you do? Well, you do like you got a little flavor of what I do right there. It's like you just talk about the character. Like you just talk about the character. That's all you have to do. You know, like, and that way the actor, the artist can mold the clay however he wants, right? Because the minute I start giving a line reading, it ruins his whatever he's building, right? Like it kills it, because now he's influenced by like, oh, his mind will go, oh, he wants me to say it like this. No. Don't say it like how I would say it. I want the actor to say it how his character would say it, right? So the moment I open my mouth and give a line reading, I have now polluted the actor's creation. And honestly, I've infiltrated and ruined his creation, right? Like it's not fair to the artist, right? It just isn't. And also it's like, dude, if you were doing that, if your aim is to just do line readings, then just do a puppet show, quite honestly, right? So that's how I feel about it. So I think the best way to do it is just talk about the character. But more importantly too, is I like to give action verbs, right? So you say, okay, you know, do you know what the action here is? Do you know what you're trying to do here, right? Just give an action verb, because actors will latch on to that, right? So you say, you know, like, okay, in Omar's thing, I don't remember what it was on the day, but in the example of this, like just thinking back to the script and stuff, it's like, well, what he's disappointed, right? Because he's firing a guy that he has become friends with, right? So you're disappointed, right? But you can only play disappointment so far, and a lot of scenes will have multiple action verbs, right? Because it's a roller coaster. Every little tiny scene. Because think about your life. Right? You just don't sit at one level, right? Most people are like a little roller coaster, right? So that's what you have to remember with actors as well. It's like to bring these characters to life. And I know this is just a stupid little spec ad, right? But you know, I think, you know, I get a lot of questions here about directing and actors and stuff. And I think I am an anomaly in our camera YouTube world that can actually speak to this stuff, because I lived it for so long, right? So it's like, if you want to start directing actors, you have to understand actors. That's why any film school you go to, if you're on a track to be like a director or even a writer, they do have you take like acting 101, just so you can start getting the minds. Hell, they even have lawyers take acting 101, because lawyers are performing too, you know, and they give their big summations at the end of a trial, right? So like, and that's the same with directors and writers. You have to get into the mind of the actor. It's very, very important.
I didn't know if you.
Yeah, they make it I'm sure.
But I was just saying, like, if you had to go do something, like, don't feel like
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Alright, dude, that was sick. Okay, so I know it's tight quarters, but I want us to try to see if we can get something handmade-y in here. Maybe we have to go back on the 28 to do that. I don't know.
So now we're moving on from Omar's coverage. We got it. And then you'll hear me say, like, I wanted something Handmaid's-y. So another reference outside of The Graduate that I shared with Miguel was Handmaid's Tale. I really like how in the Handmaid's Tale show, a lot of times when it's intense conversations, they'll put one character and really ride the frame with the character. But we were in such this little tight space. I was like, dude, I hope we can still do it with what we have. We don't have BTS of it, but I do believe that we went back on the 28 mil to do it. I'm not sure though. Maybe Miguel can chime in and drop us a comment or something and let us know. I imagine we went back to the 28, but maybe not. I just can't remember what we did. And because it was just me and him at that point, we don't have any BTS of that. And we were really trying to get the hell out of that room that we were guerrilla stealing, So, but at the end, like whatever compromise we came to, I kind of like it, Obviously, I would have liked to have more modifiers, like the floppy I brought. Like I really wish we could have built that, but we were really worried about getting in trouble. And he ended up getting reprimanded from the hotel liaisons or whatever because they called him and stuff just as we were leaving. Because I had another idea of a shot because the building is very high. I wanted this epic, I wanted Miguel on the roof because he has like a badass, Omar has a badass roof with a pool and everything on it. It's really high, it's higher than the orchestra hall that we were shooting at. I wanted him up high, pointed down, looking at the crosswalk, and like an aerial shot almost of me crossing the crosswalk. That would have been so epic, but we got kicked out of the building. So then we had to compromise, and there's across the street is the orchestra hall, the Disney orchestra hall, and there's actually like 3 flights of stairs, and I had Miguel, we went up those stairs, so we kind of did still kind of get like a top down looking down, but it wasn't like this epic aerial shot that I wanted with the 70 to 210, but it's fine, and then obviously out on the street, it's just me and Miguel trying to find cool shots, and it really was just around the same area on Grand Ave.
Like to see the whole building. Do you think we should go to the 28 to 135? I guess we'll know when we get on the other side of the road.
Yeah, and that's really what I was going for. I knew because of the reference of The Graduate that I really wanted to emulate. I was like, no, we have to do the zooms, my 28 to 135 servo zoom, but we did a lot on the 70 to 210. This is so funny because I just got this lens too, but it's the Minolta version. It's the Minolta 70 to 210. So, but it's pretty rad. It came with the adapter, luckily, the Sony adapter for the old Minolta 70 to 210. And then this was another compromise too, like the bridge. Like I really wanted the shot to be me looking over this bridge and then the camera slowly zooming in on me as I was looking out. But we just couldn't get it just wasn't really working out, the location. And I was also worried about it shooting directly at my nose. So then we ended up, and plus two, we didn't even it was my own fault for not bringing a 5-in-1 like a flector, like a reflector 5-in-1 dish. I had one in the car and then we just forgot to bring it with us when we hit the road. There you can see the 28 to 135 in Miguel's bag there. But yeah, either way, this was a compromise too, and it was rough. The lighting was rough, but then Miguel fixed my close-up shot for the specific dialogue, and I was really stoked about the way that he's able to fix that in the grade.
As long as the microphone stays on. Then I'll just have to wait for a lull in traffic, That's all there is to it.
And I was just talking about the traffic, because the traffic's loud. There were cops right under us. The protests were pretty much over at this point. There you see the epic Minolta 70 to 210 on the FX6. And there we threw the big fuzzy on the Sennheiser MKH 416. And then obviously I was still wearing my Tascam DR10L Pro for my dialogue. Yeah, I'm super stoked to have that lens now. I've always wanted a big lens like that, and then, just being able to get that. And I traded one of my old film cameras for it, so it's even cooler. Yeah, so, just, walking around guerrilla style, getting all those shots, and, so I know it's just a little silly, a little spec ad, and, but that just shows, the amount of detail on the day that I like to put into it, because I take the directing and the acting very seriously, obviously because of all the training and stuff that I have and experience of working with actors and being an actor myself. So I don't know if that'll help any of you out that are creating your own projects, whether you're producing, whether you're directing, or maybe even if you're acting in them. But again, huge shout out to audiosocket for letting us try out the platform, and a huge shout out to everyone involved with this, my fellow actor Shalabi Omar, my DP color graders, and our BTS guy, Miguel Ordez. You can follow him on Instagram at MiggyVision. And of course, my wonderful wife, Marianne, for helping me. She helped me clean up the script because she does have an MFA in screenwriting. and then also she helped me do the edit. It was her idea to keep rewinding. I was only going to rewind like twice, but she was like, no, you should do it over and over and have a new crazy song every time. And I was like, oh, okay, and that really helped it out. So she's a really good editor. And anyways, thank you all for the support. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week. Oh, join us for the live streams this Sunday night, 7 p.m.